Welcome to today's deep dive. It is fantastic to have you with us today.
Yeah, really glad you're tuning in.
Today, we're exploring a story that is fundamentally about vision. We're looking at how one individual's imagination can literally lay the physical and the architectural groundwork for an entire society.
Which is just a massive undertaking to even think about.
Right. And to guide our conversation today, we are pulling from a comprehensive Wikipedia article detailing the life and work of Richard Kaufman.
He was a fascinating architect and town planner.
Exactly. He lived from 1887 to 1958. And our mission for you today is to really dig into his journey.
Yeah, we want to figure out how a single person manages to map out the future of an entire landscape.
Okay, let's unpack this. We are talking about a man who traveled from the freezing temperatures of Norway.
Where he was comfortably working as a government town planner.
Right, from there all the way to the Middle East, specifically to design a totally new landscape from scratch.
It's an incredible trajectory, and I want to explain exactly why this matters to you as you listen today.
Because it's not just about, old buildings.
Exactly. This deep dive isn't just a history lesson about faded blueprints. It is a masterclass in how physical spaces are deliberately engineered.
Oh.
We're looking at how a society's highest social ideals, things like equality, community, and shared labor.
How they actually take shape.
Right, how they were physically manifested in brick, mortar, and city grids.
And at the same time, we'll look at how those grand ideas had to adapt to the really harsh realities of local environments.
Because when you study Kaufman's work, you're exploring the fascinating intersection of ideology, geography, and architecture.
It really reminds us that the spaces we walk through every day, whether it's a sprawling suburb or a dense city center, they are rarely accidental.
No, they are designed with profound intention.
That idea of intention is exactly what drives this story. So let's look at how that intention was forged in his early years.
Let's do it.
Kaufman was born in 1887 in Frankfurt, Germany. And what immediately jumps out about his early 20s is a rather sudden pivot.
Yeah, huge pivot.
He initially pursued fine art. He enrolled at the Stadelschule Art Academy in 1907. But he didn't stay long.
No, just a year later, he transferred to Amsterdam to study architecture.
Right, eventually moving to the Technical University of Munich and graduating in 1912.
And then he opens his own architectural office in Frankfurt in 1914.
It feels like he was moving at lightning speed to find his true calling.
That rapid pivot from art to architecture tells us a lot about how his mind worked, I think.
How so?
Well, it suggests someone who deeply appreciates aesthetics, but ultimately craves structure, function, and real-world application.
Because a painting sits on a wall, but a building is something people actually live inside.
Exactly. However, just as he opens his office, his trajectory is completely derailed by the outbreak of the First World War.
Right, 1914.
He ends up fighting on the Eastern Front. And this is a really critical turning point for him.
It had to be.
It was during his time on the Eastern Front that he witnessed the severe persecution directed against East European Jews.
That has to change a person completely. I mean, you go from debating architectural theory in Munich to witnessing sheer survival and systemic targeting in a war zone.
What's fascinating here is how that grim reality deeply impacted his awareness.
It had to leave a mark.
Oh, absolutely. It clearly fueled a deep sense of purpose that would define the rest of his life. You just can't unsee that kind of suffering.
Right.
It shifts your perspective from just designing pleasant houses for wealthy clients to asking a much bigger question.
Which is?
How can architecture actually protect or elevate a vulnerable population?
Wow. And that search for a broader purpose leads us to the most unexpected pivot of his career.
It really is wild.
Fast forward a few years to 1919. The war is over, and Kaufman has landed a highly respectable, secure job working as a government town planner in Christiania.
Which is the city we now know as Oslo, Norway.
Exactly. But then he crosses paths with a man named Arthur Ruppen. Now, Ruppen was a key figure in the Zionist enterprise, and he essentially pitches Kaufman the job of a lifetime.
He tells him, leave your comfortable government post, move to Palestine, and become the leading physical planner for new Jewish settlements.
And surprisingly, Kaufman accepts.
He says yes.
By 1920, he immigrates to Eretz Yisrael, which at the time was a territory controlled by the British under the British mandate.
I want you to really visualize the sheer scale of the culture shock here.
Right. Think about the weather alone.
He trades the predictable freezing climate of Scandinavia and the safety of a government pension, by the way.
Huge.
And he immigrates to the Middle East. He becomes the chief architect for the Palestine Land Development Company.
Also known as Hashrat Haishuf.
Right. So he's stepping into a region with a completely different climate, a vastly different culture, and a highly complex political landscape under British rule.
His task wasn't just to build a few houses.
No, he was tasked with translating a massive socio-political vision into tangible infrastructure for a nascent society.
I'm trying to wrap my head around the logistics of that, because between 1920 and 1932, he is essentially handed a blank canvas in the northern valleys.
Specifically the Jezreel Valley.
Right. He drew up the master plans for an entire network of rural villages.
Almost single-handedly.
We are talking about places like Ein Herod, Kefar Yehoshua, Kefar Yehezkel, and Degania Aleph.
Yep.
These were kibbutzim and moshevim, right?
Yes, they were.
For anyone listening who might not be familiar with the exact structure of those communities, how do they differ from just a standard farming town?
That is a crucial distinction to make. These weren't just standard towns where people happen to live near each other.
Okay.
A kibbutz is a collective community where everything was traditionally shared. Wealth, labor, dining, and even childcare.
Everything is communal.
Right. A moshav, on the other hand, is a cooperative agricultural village.
So how does that work?
In a moshav, the residents share heavy machinery, and they market their crops collectively, but they maintain their own individual family farms and private homes.
Got it. So Kaufman had to create comprehensive master plans that could actually sustain these very specific, highly communal ways of living.
Exactly, while also functioning as profitable agricultural hubs.
Here's where it gets really interesting, especially from a visual standpoint.
I love this part.
I am looking at the details for his work on Moshav Nahalal in the Jezreel Valley.
The very first moshav of them.
Yes, that workers' cooperative settlement you just described. And looking at an aerial view, the entire town is designed in a perfect, massive circle.
It really is.
It looks exactly like a child's drawing of the sun, with rays radiating outward. How strict was this geometric design on the ground?
It was incredibly precise. Oh, yeah. If you were standing dead center in Nahalal, you would be surrounded by the public buildings.
The schools, the administrative office.
Right, the cultural centers. Surrounding that core was a circular road.
Okay.
If you crossed that road moving outward, you hit the agricultural farm buildings. And Kaufman designed these to be placed exactly 20 meters apart from one another.
20 meters. That's about 66 feet apart along the curve.
Exactly.
So every single family's barn or farm building is equidistant from their neighbors.
Perfect symmetry. And the precision continued outward.
What came next?
Past the farm buildings were the actual fields and farmlands. These were designed as long pie-shaped wedges.
Oh, wow.
They were 45 meters, or about 148 feet, wide at their base, stretching outward for hundreds of meters into the valley.
That is what creates those sunshine rays when viewed from above.
Exactly.
It is stunning to look at, but surely he didn't design a whole farming village like a wheel just because it looked pretty from an airplane.
No, definitely not.
What was the practical reality of living in a sunshine ray?
Well, the beauty was a byproduct of a deeply functional and philosophical idea.
Okay.
Kaufman was heavily inspired by the British urban planner Ebenezer Howard.
Ah, the garden suburbs concept.
Yes. Howard believed that modern living should combine the best parts of the bustling town and the peaceful country, eliminating the grime of industrial cities.
Right, so if you've ever walked through a modern planned community that circles around a central park, you've experienced a descendant of this idea.
Exactly. Kaufman took that grand European theory and adapted it for pragmatic agricultural pioneers.
So how did the circle help them?
The circular design of Nahalal meant that every single family had the exact same distance to walk to the public center.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
It physically enforced equality. No family had a better plot closer to the school or the clinic.
And at the same time, their farmlands radiated outward into the open valley, giving them the vast space they needed to cultivate crops.
Precisely.
That is brilliant. The layout of the rows and houses is practically forcing the residents to live out their egalitarian ideals.
It is architecture as a social tool.
And he applied this philosophy to the fully communal kibbutzim as well, right? Like in Degania Aleph.
He did. In Degania Aleph, the architecture was actively participating in how the society functioned.
What did he build there?
Kaufman designed the children's house, the kindergarten, and the school. Because a kibbutz relied on communal child rearing so the parents could work the land, these buildings couldn't just be tucked away on a side street.
He had to be central.
Right. They were the beating heart of the community's future. Kaufman's designs physically centered the educational and social principles of the movement.
Ensuring the buildings serve the ideology.
Exactly.
It's amazing. He completely revolutionized the rural landscape, giving these abstract social theories a physical form. But he doesn't stop there.
Not at all.
He soon transitions from these rural farming communities to shaping major urban centers. His footprint expands dramatically.
He designed entirely new cities.
Right, like Afula and Herzliya. Plus, he started planning major neighborhoods in existing cities.
Jerusalem's a great example.
Yeah, he designed Rehavia, Beit Hakaram, Talpiot, and Kiryat Moshe in Jerusalem.
And over in Haifa, he planned Hadar, HaKarmel, Neve Sha'anan, Bet Galim, and Central Carmel.
His transition to urban planning is where we see his true versatility.
Absolutely. Taking a neighborhood like Rehavia in Jerusalem, for example, he had to figure out how to apply those lush, open garden suburb concepts to a dense, hilly, urban environment.
How did he manage that?
He designed curving streets that followed the natural topography of the hills, interspersed with green pedestrian pathways.
So he was laying the physical foundation for a rapidly growing urban population.
He was, but his most iconic urban legacy is undoubtedly his work in Tel Aviv.
Yes, so let's dive into Tel Aviv. He was brought in to design the northern neighborhoods of the city.
Working off the urban master plans created by Patrick Geddes.
Right. Now, Geddes was famous for treating cities like living organisms, focusing on air circulation and green spaces.
But Kaufman is the one who actually had to design the physical buildings to fill Geddes' street grid.
And he brings a very specific European design language with him, doesn't he?
He does, because he studied in Germany and Amsterdam. He was heavily influenced by neoclassicist architecture early on.
Okay.
But he became deeply inspired by Ludwig Mies van der Rohe.
A towering figure in what became known as the International style.
Exactly. The International style was all about sleek, functional design.
Clean lines.
Right. A total lack of decorative ornamentation, flat roofs, and an emphasis on the interior volume of the building rather than thick, heavy mass.
This raises an important question, though. How do you take a stark, minimalist architectural style that was meant for the cloudy, cool climates of Germany or the Netherlands and drop it into the glaring, humid heat of the Middle Eastern coast?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that adaptation is Kaufman's genius.
So he didn't just copy and paste European buildings onto the sand dunes of Tel Aviv.
No, that would have been a disaster.
Yeah.
He took the functional egalitarian spirit of the International style and heavily modified it to address the specific environmental and climate conditions of the Mediterranean.
So what does that actually look like for someone walking down the street in Tel Aviv? What specific changes did you make?
Well, in Europe, international-style buildings often featured...
Right, because it's cold and cloudy.
Exactly. If you did that in Tel Aviv, the apartment would become a greenhouse.
You'd bake.
So Kaufman and his contemporaries shrunk the windows.
Makes sense.
And instead of vast glass facades, they designed long, recessed balconies that provided deep shade.
Which allows residents to catch the Mediterranean sea breeze without baking in the direct sun.
Exactly. They utilized flat roofs to provide outdoor communal spaces for residents to gather in the cooler evenings.
Brilliant.
And they lifted buildings off the ground on pillars known as pilotis.
What does that do?
It allows the wind to blow underneath and cool the entire structure.
Wow.
By applying this modified international style, Kaufman laid the vital groundwork for what Tel Aviv is famous for today.
The White City.
Yes. This massive collection of climate-adapted white plastered buildings became globally recognized.
The White City. It is fascinating to realize that one of the most famous UNESCO World Heritage architectural sites exists because Kaufman realized that European glass boxes wouldn't survive the desert sun.
He had to bend the architecture to the will of the geography.
And his influence just kept growing. By 1927, he was appointed to the British Mandate Town Planning Committee.
Which is a huge deal.
This means he wasn't just an independent architect sketching in a studio. He actually had a seat at the table governing regional planning alongside the British authorities.
And his portfolio continued to diversify from there.
What else was he doing?
Between 1932 and 1934, he served as one of the lead architects for the Levant Fair.
That was a massive international trade exhibition held in Tel Aviv, right?
Right. He was responsible for planning the layout of the pavilions. He created a space that could handle massive crowds and showcase the economic potential of the region to the world.
And he also designed prominent individual structures that are still at the center of power today.
Yes, he did.
For instance, he designed Beit Igyan. It's a striking modernist building in the Rehavia neighborhood of Jerusalem.
And today, that exact building serves as the official residence of the Israeli Prime Minister.
It is a perfect encapsulation of his reach. His work literally spans the entire spectrum of human settlement.
It really does.
He mapped out the agricultural fields for cooperative farmers, he designed the sweeping urban grids of major coastal cities, and he built the highest seats of government leadership.
It's unparalleled.
So what does this all mean? When we look back at the life of Richard Kaufman, from his early days as a fine art student in Frankfurt, to the horrors of the Eastern Front, to suddenly uprooting his life for a completely new climate, we see a legacy that defies simple categorization.
Absolutely.
He wasn't just building houses. He was a visionary who took grand European architectural theories like the Garden City movement and the minimalist international style and successfully forced them to adapt to a challenging new environment.
He made them work on the ground.
Right. In doing so, he became a foundational pillar for the infrastructure of an entirely new society. He engineered spaces that reflected the highest social ideals of equality and community for the people living there.
It is an astonishing and enduring legacy. And to leave you with a final thought to mull over, I want you to consider the immense psychological agility this man possessed.
Psychological agility.
Yeah. Alongside these massive society-altering city plans, Kaufman was also constantly building private residences all over the country and regularly competing in standard design competitions.
Oh, wow.
Imagine the psychological shift he had to navigate on a daily basis. 1 minute, he is operating on a macro scale, essentially playing a godlike role as he designs entire utopian cities.
Calculating the precise mathematical angles of a sunshine ray village for hundreds of families.
Exactly. And the very next minute, he has to zoom all the way down to the micro scale.
Sitting across a table from a single family.
Right. Designing an intimate private home for them as they try to build a life in a rapidly changing landscape.
That's incredible.
The ability to hold both that grand, sweeping societal vision and the quiet, intimate human experience in his mind simultaneously is, to me, the true mark of his brilliance.
The macro and the micro, balanced perfectly. It really changes the way you look at a city map or the layout of a neighborhood.
It definitely does.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the physical blueprints of history.
It was a pleasure.
We hope this exploration of ideology, geography, and architecture keeps your curiosity sparked. The next time you walk through your own neighborhood, take a look around and ask yourself what ideals the designers were trying to build into the pavement. Keep exploring the world around you, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.